Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. First let's address my voice. I got sick a couple of weeks ago and it knocked me right off my ass, and as a result I ended up losing my voice because of it. So I hope that the voice doesn't get on your nerves. I just needed to start shooting video again. I have missed talking to you guys. I've missed being out there, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. So now I'm starting to get out a lot more, but I really can't let this laryngitis hold me back. I need to keep moving, and yeah, so hopefully you guys don't get too annoyed with my voice. There's nothing I can do about it. So yeah, but I have missed you guys. I'm so happy to be back. And if you're new, welcome to my channel. I don't normally sound like this. So please don't think that this is my normal voice. It isn't, but welcome. Thank you for dropping by. I hope that you hang around for a while. I hope that you hit that subscribe button. For those of you guys that are returning, I'm so happy to see you again. All right, so now let's go ahead and get started with the video. Today's topic is going to be around warm palettes, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between all of the warm palettes, at least the ones that I own, because we have been bombarded with all kinds of really warm tone palettes since about, gosh, probably last year. You know, Anastasia Beverly Hills, I think, with the Modern Renaissance palette started a trend. It has taken off since then. For me, it falls right into line with what I love. I love wearing warm colors. That is what looks best on my skin tone, I think, and that is really what I gravitate toward. In recent months, you know, we've gotten a lot of really, really warm palettes, though. A lot of rusty, warm colors, a lot of reds that have been thrown into the mix, and even a lot of yellows that have been thrown into the mix. The palettes that I'm going to cover off on today are all going to kind of hit that entire gamut of warm toned shadows and colors and the color stories that are out there. As you can tell, I'm wearing warm shadows today. I'm actually wearing the Urban Decay Naked Heat. I'm still kind of playing around with it and getting to know it, but I think I have some pretty good ideas about it. I'm not going to do a lot of swatching in this video just because my swatches always suck so bad. Maybe I will insert swatches. I don't know. Let me see how it goes, and then we'll go from there. So the first palette that I wanted to talk about is, of course, the one that has recently hit and everybody and their mama is talking about, and that is the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. And let's talk about the packaging first. The packaging is a very solid plastic packaging. It's got a really pretty copper background. It has this really nice kind of like shadow box thing going on with all of the lines and patterns and things that are underneath, and then it's got like this clear plastic on top of it. And Naked Heat is, you know, the lettering is somewhat raised. And then it's got this beautiful kind of like flame burnished kind of thing happening. I would have to say that, you know, this is beautiful, beautiful packaging, but it is thicker. It's a lot thicker than I think the other Urban Decay palettes, the Naked palettes that have come out. I don't remember if the smoky one is quite this dense, but it is thicker. It is heavy, and this is unlike the other palettes. The other Naked palettes, it's got this really nice magnetic closure that kind of snaps shut, and for people like me, that's like really gratifying. And this palette retails for $54, so it is kind of up there in price, but you are getting 12 shadows in the palette, and this is what the shadows look like. As you can see, we've got tons of really, really warm shades. I would have to say that the shadow quality for the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette is really, really good. I think that it is probably the best quality that they've had that you can find in the Naked palettes for Urban Decay. It does have a lot of kick up, but that's fine. You know, I'm a tapper anyway. I always tap my brush. They're very, very pigmented eyeshadows. I mean, you just have to tap into the pan just a little bit to get a lot of pigment. So you have to be careful with this palette. You can't just dive in because you're gonna pick up a lot of pigmentation with it. There are a couple of negatives in my opinion where this palette is concerned, and you can tell because you've got a range of colors, like starting about here with Lumbre and all the way through to here with En Fuego. So these shades right here are all, I have found that they're all very similar. They're just different in maybe finish or maybe slight shade difference, but they're all very similar colors. And the bad thing about that is that it kind of limits you in the amount of looks that you can come up with. That is the one thing that I am struggling with this palette, is that every look that I've done with it kind of looks the same. Because I don't have enough variation between these shades. One of the other things that I would say that is a negative for this palette is the fact that it doesn't have a gold. I really, really wish that they had put a gold color, you know, a gold shadow in here. I mean, the lettering is gold, you know, so why wouldn't you include something that's got a little bit more of a yellow tone to help break up the monotony of all of these colors? So I have taken to having to resort to a different eyeshadow, or, you know, to either to going to a single eyeshadow, or, you know, just not being able to do a 100% look with this palette. And I can come up with things with this palette, you know. I don't absolutely have to have a gold. I just wish that it did have a gold, because that would help to brighten things up, because otherwise the oranges and the cinnamon colors that you have in here, you know, and those really spicy warm colors that you've got in here all kind of tend to blend into each other, which is kind of sad. Because I really, I love this palette. I love the concept of it. I just want it to have a gold shade. The other positive thing, though, that I would say is that it does come with more mattes than the other Naked palettes. A color here called Chaser, which is kind of like a gray toned beige kind of color. Then you've got Low Blow, which is a really pretty peanut buttery kind of color. You've got Cayenne and Fuego and Ashes here at the end. These matte shadows are really beautiful. They're very soft. I mean, they are really nice mattes. I have to say, you got to give props to Urban Decay, because they really stepped up their game where the mattes were concerned. You know, they're very blendable. They're very soft. They're very pigmented. And I like the fact that you get more mattes. And the only thing that I wish is that we had a little bit more variety in color, which we don't. The most unique shade, I think, in this palette, and it is one that I have yet to really dive into and try, is this color here on the end, and it's called Ember. Now, this particular color is a really cool color because it's like a deep bronze, but it's almost like a duochrome kind of color. And the reason I say that is, and I have not worked with it, so I don't know for sure how it's going to act when you're dealing with it with a brush, but you know, when you put it on your you swatch it, you know, it has this really interesting undertone. And if you start to blend it around, you start to see that it's got kind of like this smoky gray undertone. And then you've got that really pretty bronze on the top. I haven't played with this shadow much, so I cannot wait until I take the time to do one. I want to do a really smoky look with this one, and I think you can easily achieve a smoky look with this one for sure. So overall, I really like it, but I don't think that it has the amount of variety that I would like to see. Those are my thoughts on this particular palette. Now, Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. Everybody knows this palette. Everybody loves this palette. Let's talk about the packaging. I hate the packaging, I'm not gonna lie. It is starting to get dingy, it's getting yellow, you know, and this is because I've kept mine as pristine as possible. I know that there are probably people out there that are a lot more abusive on their eyeshadow palettes, which that's not, you know, you be you. I mean, if that's how you are, that's how you are. It's not about what's on the outside necessarily that matters, it's about what's on the inside. And these shadows are amazing. They are so beautiful. I bought this last summer and I have used it quite a bit. The shadows in this palette, just like any other Anastasia eyeshadows, are very blendable, and they are very pigmented. These, I think, win the prize for blendability because they just practically blend themselves. They are so nice to work with, you know, and I can very easily get a beautiful gradient on my eye using these colors. You do have a lot of warm tones in these colors. You also, though, have a couple of cooler tones that you can use, which gives you a little bit more variety and a little bit more flexibility in what you want to do. It also has a beautiful gold eyeshadow that is very, very metallic and very, very shimmery. You've got golden ochre, you know, you've got Vermeer if you want to take things a little bit more down to the pink side. You know, you've got red ochre, you've got Venetian red. I mean, you've got all these colors and you can blend them together. And then you have Real Gar. And Real Gar is a beautiful, bold orange shadow. These are all really, really pretty. They're warm toned, but I do like the fact that the Modern Renaissance palette does allow you a lot more flexibility in the amount of looks that you can come up with. I can do something very, very different many days in a row using this palette versus the Naked Heat palette, which, like I said, the looks all tend to be the same. Today I tried to get a little bit different on it. I went cut crease, and I still kind of feel like this is the same look that I've posted, you know, multiple times. Out of the palette, I would have to say, you know, the antique bronze is probably my most favorite bronze ever. I love this bronze color. I use it in the outer corner. I use it in the crease. Cypress Umber, which is this deeper brown, is also another really great color. All in all, the Modern Renaissance palette is hands down, you know, one of the most beautiful palettes I've ever owned and one of the most versatile palettes. The quality of the shadows is there. It is $42 and you're getting 14 shadows. The next palette that I wanted to talk about is the Vizart Warm Neutrals palette. This is by far the most expensive palette I've ever bought. It comes with 12 shadows. The packaging, you know, it doesn't look all like it's all that. It looks a little cheap actually, but it's not. It is a heavier grade plastic, you know, and you have these beautiful 12 colors. You don't get a mirror with this, but that's okay. You know, that to me, that's not a deal breaker. You have a wonderful, wonderful array of warm toned matte colors. You do kind of over index a little bit, I think, in the medium toned shadows. You know, you got, you know, these shadows here, you got this shadow, and that shadow, you know, and even this one. You know, so you've got a lot of medium toned shades in this palette, but you also get this really, really pretty yellow shadow, which I have worn this before, and it is the most pigmented yellow that I've ever owned, and that's just one swipe. That yellow is really, really pigmented. I don't have to build it up too much in order to get it to show up. And yeah, I really like having that pop of yellow in there. I think it's really, really pretty. I also like the fact that you get this interesting yellow orange kind of color right here, which is one I don't normally have, but it is a really pretty kind of like more yellow toned orange versus a red toned orange. So while it is still warm, it's not on the red side of things. It is more on the yellow side of things. I think that this palette is really, really pretty, except that I do wish that this brown shade here had been a little bit darker. I like having this reddish tone, but I really would like to have a deeper brown tone to kind of bring this down a little bit deeper if I wanted to. These two, as far as tone is concerned, are very close, you know, as far as like the intensity. And had this been a little bit darker, I think that would have been better. These shadows are all really, really pretty. I mean, they're very good quality shadows. Vizart is bar none one of the best eyeshadows on the market as far as how soft and how blendable they are. They don't provide a lot of kick up though, so that's the one difference. They're still very, very soft. They're not quite as blendable as the Anastasia shadows or even the Naked Heat shadows, but they are very, very nice. Like I said though, $80 is a pretty big price to pay for an eyeshadow palette. I'm not necessarily an all matte girl. I like having shimmer, so I always have to supplement this palette with something else. You know, so I knew that going in. So that's not a, you know, for me, that's okay, whatever. I knew about that. Moving on to the Smashbox Cover Shot Eye Palette in Ablaze, and this is what it looks like. And the packaging, man, this is great packaging. I could sit and stare at this forever. You know, it's almost like having a damn fidget spinner. I mean, I could just sit there and play with it, you know, like you would with the spinner. This retails for $29 and you can find it at Sephora and Ulta. This is what the palette looks like. It's tiny, it's little, not gonna lie. But you know, that makes it a benefit for traveling. It does have a nice sized mirror, you know, so that you can at least get a good look at your eyes. As far as this one goes, you know, for me, this is a palette that if the Urban Decay Naked Heat and Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, you know, had a baby, this would be it. Because it has a lot of the same things that both of those palettes have. This palette, I've tried it a few times and it's hard to come up with a subtle look using this palette. It goes from subtle to dramatic like that. But you know, the reason that I'm saying, besides the fact that it's really intense, the reason that I say that it's a cross between is because, you know, you've got you got your deeper colors, but you've also got this pop of red here, and then you've got this kind of like rose gold that is somewhat similar to some of the shadows that you get in the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette, except I would say that this is a little bit brighter. You know, it's not quite as dark and intense. You get 4 shimmers and 4 mattes in the palette, and I really do like the fact that it has a rose gold. The Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette does not have a rose gold in it, but that's because they were following a Renaissance theme. And in the Renaissance, rose gold did not exist. Gold existed, but rose gold did not. So, you know, that's why they didn't include it. They were staying true to the spirit of the palette, which I can appreciate that. But this one does have a rose gold. But aside from the rose gold, the bronze that this palette has is really, really pretty. As is this really pretty kind of like marigold, or it's again one of those orange, yellow orange kind of colors. You know, they're all really, really nice and they blend very well. They do have a little bit of kick up, you know, and then you've got this deeper dark brown, which is really soft and really pretty. You can do a lot with this palette. You've also got this medium gold right here that shows up nicely on the eyes. And then of course you've got your brow bone highlight, and you know, you've got that red color that's in there, which is very much like the reds that you find in the Anastasia palettes. The Smashbox palette for $29, that's actually a really good value. I think if you don't want to get the Modern Renaissance palette, but you don't want to get the Naked Heat palette either, then get the Smashbox Blaze palette, because you'll have some of the best of both in that one, I think. Right. The next palette that I wanted to talk about is the TwoFace Peanut Butter and Honey palette. And the packaging is really cute. It is so sweet. You know, you've got this little girl here. She's a piece of toast. She's got peanut butter, honey. She's got these beautiful little pink lips. And that's about all I like about the palette. I'm sorry, Too-Faced. This palette to me is a big old dud. I have used this once and I just don't reach for it, because for me, the shade selection in this palette is simply uninspiring. I don't find anything really that I can do that's new or different or fun or unique using this palette. Honey Buns is so promising. It's so pretty and yellow. And this is back when I was doing my yellow palette thing. But it's just, I don't know, I just didn't find that the pigmentation was there. In the swatch, you can also tell, compared to the Vizart yellow, which let me grab that so that we can look at them side by side. I've got the Honeybee yellow up here, and here's the Vizart yellow. There's a big difference in the pigmentation, and so you've got to build this Honeybee color up, but it doesn't really build up all that great, you know? I mean, it's just, for me, it's just not there. Additionally, I don't really like the Bee's Knees color, which is this rusty color right here. It's got these glitters in it, and that's it right there. But the glitters, I found, tend to fall away and fall onto my cheeks, and they're really visible. And it's just not, you know, it's just not all that to me. Going Nuts is this brown shade right here. Again, it's not very well pigmented, you know, and that's just, it's just not that pigmented. And then let's talk about these three colors here on the side. I hate them. I hate the fact that they use so much real estate in this palette on these three colors. And I know that this is the standard packaging for this type of palette for Too Faced, but they might want to rethink it a little bit, because you could easily get, you know, another 3 shadows, you know, in this space here. And all 3 of these tones, I'm not really sure what the hell I'm supposed to do with them. You've got this shade here, which is called Queen Bee, and it is a grayed down beige. It reminds me a lot of Chaser in the Naked Heat palette, but it's just not as pigmented, you know, it just doesn't have what you want, you know, it's not giving it to me. You also have Queen Bee, which is a pink toned highlight shade, which again doesn't really do a whole lot for me, you know, it's just not really doing it. And then you've got this other one that's called Creamed Honey, you know, which is supposed to be your upper brow bone shade. And it does nice, but it's got those damn glitters in it again, you know. So for me, these 3 here are the biggest waste of space. I don't ever use them. And why on earth would you give so much space to these small, you know, to these colors that are likely going to go on the brow bone? You know, I mean, some people might use these on as the shadow on their eyelid. And the concept for these palettes is you're supposed to be able to use these, you know, across this way in order to create a look. I don't know. To me, it's just not a very good palette. Also, I will say that the pan size on these is really small too. I don't feel like I'm getting a whole lot. Now this palette retails for $36. $36 and you're getting 9 shades. I'd rather spend $29 for 8 that are going to give me the color payoff that I want, where I can look at the palette and I can say, yeah, I can come up with a bunch of different looks using this. Sadly, the peanut butter and honey palette, while the concept is really good, I think the execution just wasn't so great. The last palette that I wanted to talk about is actually one of my favorites. And, you know, talking bad about Too Faced, and I'm about to talk good about Too Faced, and that is the Sweet Peach palette. I love this palette. It is just probably one of the best palettes I've come across this year. It has got 18 shadows. It retails for $49. You get a wide variety of different shadows in this palette. They made very, very good use of the 18 slots that they had. You've got a really pretty green that is unusual in a warm toned palette. You also have a really nice purple tone here. This eyeshadow palette has got a great selection of shadows, and I have to say that Too Faced wins for the most metallic gold shadow. It is this shade right here called Luscious, and when I first put this on, I was not expecting it to be as pigmented as it was, but it is one of the most shiny and beautiful gold eyeshadows. I mean, look at that. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. If Urban Decay Naked Heat had this color, I would have been like all over that palette. I mean, I would have just like, ooh, that's definitely a hands down winner. This color, I mean, it's just, oh my gosh, it is beautiful. And it is a gold, but it does have a little bit of a peach undertone to it. So I really like this palette. The one thing I will say though is Too Faced is known for having palettes that put off a smell. And, you know, while the smell was cute at first and everything, I'm kind of over it. Chocolate, I get it, because in some of their bronzers and things like that, they do use chocolate in the formula. So that's why you get that chocolate smell. And you know, use chocolate, you know, to create different shades of brown and things of that nature. But the peach smell and like the peanut butter and honey one, and the peanut butter and jelly one, if you bought that one, you know, has a smell as well. This one smells like honey. This one smells like peaches. You've got the ones that smell like chocolate. Let's just stop with the smells already. You know, they're not, we know, especially when they're not chocolate, we know that they're kind of fake and they're somewhat chemically produced. So while they were cute to start, I'm so over it. I'm done. I don't want to smell my eyeshadows anymore necessarily. That aside, the Sweet Peach palette is actually an absolute, I think it is a really good palette. I really like it. I think that you can create a ton of looks with it. I really love the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. I think it is a beautiful palette, and if you're into the warm peachy tones without going too crazy warm, I think it's another good one. I'm going to do a quick rundown of all of the palettes that I talked about today to kind of just sum up my thoughts. Naked Heat, do you need it? I don't think so. If you've got the Modern Renaissance palette, or if you've got the Ablaze palette, or if you've got any of the other palettes that I've talked about, I don't think you really need this. Unless you're a collector like me, if you love warm tones like me that has to run out and grab every warm tone eyeshadow palette that's out there, then yes, I think that that is something that, you know, if you want to spend the money on, then yes, so that you can supplement your collection. But if you are new to makeup, you know, if you are kind of just trying to expand your makeup collection and want to venture out into some warm palettes, I don't think you necessarily need this. Had they included a gold shade, that would have made things different. I think my opinion would have been different, but this is not one that I think that you have to run out and buy. The Modern Renaissance palette, yes, I think that if you are new to makeup, or if you want to have a good eyeshadow palette in your collection with warm tones and a little bit of, and a few cool tones thrown in, this is definitely a good one to get. You're going to get a lot of use out of it. You're going to get a lot of different eye looks. The shadow quality is amazing. The price is right. And I think that this is actually a definite recommendation from me. This would be one to definitely have in your collection, whether you're a newbie or an old pro. Get the Modern Renaissance palette if you haven't gotten it already. Visart Warm Neutrals palette. No, I don't think you really need this palette, only if you're a collector of warm tones, or if you want to have some super really good quality expensive eyeshadows in your collection. I would say I bought it for the yellow. Honestly, I mean, I liked all of the warm tones, and I knew that I would get a lot of use out of the warm tones, but I really bought it for that yellow. And actually, no, let me take that back. I bought it for these three colors here on the outside. But do you absolutely need it? No, I don't think so. You'd be better served by the Modern Renaissance or the Sweet Peach palette. Smashbox Ablaze palette. This is a maybe, I think. If you don't want to spend a lot of money but want to participate in the warm trend, you know, the warm shadow trend, I think this is a good one to get, because you're getting a little bit what you would get in the Naked Heat palette, and you're getting a little bit of what you would get in the Modern Renaissance palette. So for $29, this is actually not a bad buy. And then let's just, oh my God, I just can't stop. I can't stop. I just love this. But, you know, yeah, I think it's a nice one to have. If you're a collector, I think it's definitely one that you would want to have in your collection, because it is really pretty and it is very versatile, and it does have a lot of really great looks, I think, that you could create using it. Too Faced Peanut Butter and Honey palette. No, don't waste your money on it. Do not buy it. I don't like it. I don't think you would like it either. It's just not very versatile, and the colors, the shadows aren't very pigmented. If you're into those yellow toned colors, having a hard time talking now. If you're into the yellow toned colors, then maybe save up your money and go for the Visart palette, because you're going to get a lot of really good quality shadows out of this palette. If you can't afford that, then I would say buy something from ColourPop. You know, they've got a really pretty, it's a mustardy yellow. It's not a bright yellow, but it is a really pretty yellow, and it's called, I think it's called Tiger Eye. But anyway, it is a great, great yellow toned color that would be a good substitute for the yellow that you would get in here if you can't afford something like the Visart palette. And then the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. Yes, I think this is definitely one that you would enjoy having in your collection. It's not as warm toned as the Modern Renaissance palette or any of the other palettes that I talked about, but it does have that peachy, orangey kind of warmth to it. And you also have a lot of versatility using this palette. The Luscious shade on its own is worth getting. I mean, I'm not kidding. That is the most beautiful, beautiful gold tone shadow that I think I own in my collection. It is just amazingly beautiful. But besides that, you get a lot of really great bronzes in there. You get all of those beautiful peach tone colors. You get some green and purple thrown in case you want to change things up. So yes, I think the Sweet peach palette is one for you. If scents don't bother you, if scents bother you, you may not like it. Thankfully, the scent doesn't linger. You just smell it while you're using the palette. So those are my thoughts on all of the warm tone palettes that I have out there. I do know that there are a couple of others that I wanted to get, but I really had to kind of, you know, it's like, okay, I've got to really spend my money wisely. I think, which ones do I really, really want to try? So those are my thoughts, and please feel free to share in the comments down below if there are any other warm palettes that you've tried that maybe I'm not aware of, or that I might have forgotten. There's so many palettes that get thrown out there. I mean, they are cranking these out at record speed and in record numbers. So I think that it's best, you know, if you're not like me, you're just a, you know, just a casual makeup, you know, connoisseur. You don't need to have every single damn palette that gets put out. You really only need one, and it'll last you for a while before you get tired of it and you move on, or you use it all up. I don't know. I think that, you know, you just have to be really smart about how you're spending your money. For me, I'm a collector, you know, so I'm going to buy as many of these as I can, especially if they're warm tone, because, I mean, the minute you say warm tone, I start salivating just because I'm really, really into it. And that's because I'm just talking about my palettes. I'm not even talking about the singles that I own that are in the warm tone. You just have to be smart in how you're spending your money, and I hope that this review and comparison kind of helps you to cut through all the noise and find the one or maybe two palettes that are most relevant to you and that are most relevant to your lifestyle. Yeah, so that's it. That's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you found it informative. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up. It really, really helps me out. And then also follow me on my social media. So if you want to see me on Snapchat, let me know in the comments down below as well. I have all of my social media handles listed in the description bar below. Now I'm going to stop rambling because I think I have crossed over into that. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I will see you in my next video. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Versus this one, I'm just not inspired I'm not inspired by good God.